Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another broadcast here for Fast Break here live for iSports Radio. Your way for all this sports, and thank you for tuning in with us tonight. I have a special guest with me, Terry Rodriguez, host of the SoCal Sports Supreme Show, and also host of Set Point here for iSports Radio. So he'll be here joining me live here momentarily after these messages. But first, the NCAA men's brackets have dropped with Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida getting number one seeds. We'll break down those brackets, each team those brackets, and who got snubbed in the NCAA tournament as well. The Indiana deserve to get in. The West Virginia deserve to get in. Also, then the big one, the North Carolina deserve to get in, with the AD kind of displaying it on TV. We'll dive into all that, break down the brackets, and discuss the women's as they're about to go live right now. But this is Fast Break here live for iSports Radio, your dream for always sports. And I'll catch you on the other side after these short messages.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. iSports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, iEsports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we're back here after those few short, lovely messages from our sponsors here on IE Sports Radio. There we go. There we go. Terry Rodriguez, how you doing tonight, sir?
Well, I'm trying to get everything straightened out. Doing good, Davidson. Happy to be on and happy to be talking some basketball. It's probably the best time of the year for any basketball fan.
Yes, sir. The best time right now, the most intriguing tournament in WoW, because you got a lot of teams, that you can make argument they can win a championship. But we'll dive into all that good stuff here down the show. Now, for the women's side of things, the bracket is being released right now. So when that bracket gets done, we'll talk about that when that drops as well fully. So just be patient on us on the women's side of things. Of course, they always got to do the men's first and all that good stuff. So, that's how it is right there. But before we get started, our newest sponsor, Raw Nutrition Supplements. Go to getrawnutrition.com. Use that promo code IESR for 10% off. Everybody like a little discount, so take advantage of that. So go to getrawnutrition.com. Go use that promo code IESR10. Find what you're looking for. Weight loss pills, protein to get better, bigger, or where else you want to get. But use that promo code IESR10 for 10% off. It'll help you out in the long run. Also, check out Fast Break right here, or Fast Break IESR on Twitter/X. Do follows on there. We had a lot of good texts here the past weekend. After the Alabama game, they got beat down. I kind of stopped watching for the rest of the night in a sense, until that St. John's game kicked in and all that stuff. But it is what it is in that game. St. John's game, electric and all that stuff last night. Granted, I had a tornado watch all day yesterday in Alabama, so I got to watch what I can on that one. But also, our special ghost right here. Do follow him on Twitter/X. Terry Rodriguez1 right there. Do give him a follow there. Has great takes so far on the Chargers and Rams off seasons. so far. Also, UC Davis, UC Irvine, San Diego State, as well on the basketball side of the games, and UCLA, USC men's and women's takes as well. Also, that hosts our set point as well. So you're looking for straight volleyball takes. That's your man right there. So do give him a follow right there at that tag right there. Please do. He does a lot of great work for his shows and also for the network as well. All right, Taryn, we're here. Finally here. A long season, a lot of talk that we've done on our shows respectively about our respective schools, what we cover and whatnot. The tournament's here. In your opinion, going to the men's tournament, how do you see things? How do you see things shaping out when the brackets got released? How do you see things? Just a quick thought. How you evaluate and all that stuff. How do you see the tournament in your eyes?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I thought the bracket reveal was pretty good. There were a lot of SEC teams. That was the thing that first stuck out to me. 14 SEC teams. So in a primary bracket full of 64 teams, that's one. If my math's correct, that's got to be like close to like a fifth of the bracket. That's just wild, if you ask me. But 14 SEC teams. Some solid teams that deserve to be in. I kind of question West Virginia being left out. Boise State, I don't know about that. Indiana might have been a possible candidate to make it in. South Carolina, as good as they were, I don't think they deserve to make it in. We don't need any more SEC teams. I'm sorry. I know you're an SEC guy. Davidson, forgive me. I know your team's Alabama, but 14 SEC teams is quite a bit. And the fact that West Virginia unfortunately kind of got left out, who had some pretty good wins this season, just is unfortunate, and it sucks. The committee's never going to get it right. I mean, I personally wanted to see UC Irvine in the tournament, but those losses to Duquesne and Oregon State also hurt. And I'm not going to try to like mention them too much, just because, or too many of the SoCal teams all that much, unless you really need me to, but. Yeah, UC Irvine. I saw that Big West Conference tournament final. The wheels pretty much fell off for UC Irvine, and I pretty much they pretty much needed to win that one. Now, if they didn't have the losses to Duquesne and Oregon State, or if both those teams wound up winning their conference tournament and making it into the NCAA tournament, then maybe UC Irvine would probably be a first four team out. Which I'm surprised they weren't even first four out, but. It is what it is, and their season, they're probably going to be in the NIT for all we know, which that's probably getting released right now, but all eyes are on the NCAA tournament.
Real quick for me, you mentioned the 14 SEC teams, and being an SEC country, that's great and all, but I don't think they deserve 14 teams, in my opinion. I really didn't. I said, we talked about on the show, the way Oklahoma started out this year, fabulous, excellent, undefeated, going to conference play. Can't take that away from them. But once they got down to the nitty-gritty of SEC play, they didn't really stick out much. They came on a little strong towards the end of the year, but I didn't see them as a tournament team. And I think to me, I didn't think they deserved to get there. In my humble opinion. Like you mentioned about West Virginia, Boise State, Indiana. I think one of those teams would have been a better fit to put in there. UC Irvine, another team, probably deserved to be in there. And then you also look around the SEC. I didn't think Arkansas deserved to be in there as well. Now, a friend of the network, Seth V, said like months ago, when I kind of question this, said, yeah, they probably get in because how weak everything is. I said, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. But I just think it's like those two teams right there stick out. Texas was another one. I thought they've been on the fence for a good couple months. If we're gonna be real about that. But Vanderbilt, same boat. So to me, yeah, the SEC getting 14 teams, yeah, it was cool and all. But I didn't think all of them, like some of the teams I just mentioned, did not deserve to get in. I'm sorry if you're a fan of Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, y'all didn't deserve to get in. Sorry. I think which I did first part, cool. Conference play, when that really matters, y'all kind of really just wet the bed, fell flat. So I didn't think they deserve to get in. Like you mentioned, some of these lower level teams, like you said, Irvine, for example. And yeah, losing to Duquesne hurts. I mean, it's Duquesne, but still. If you look at some of these teams, losses some of these other teams had and whatnot, is Duquesne like the worst loss in the world? So, me personally, I didn't think SEC deserved 14 teams.
Mm-hmm.
But once the media kind of narrative got set for that precedent, said, ooh, this team going to get a lot of teams in, I think the writing was on the wall there for a lot of schools, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The SEC had such a strong year, and you mentioned some pretty darn good teams. And if any of those other teams were in other conferences, I could see those teams like winning their conference tournament respectfully. But with how a lot of those teams just did this year starting off, and pretty much how they all did overall, and some had like good surprises, some had bad surprises. And then in the end, Florida was the one that came out on top as the SEC tournament champion. I think the SEC is deep, and I wouldn't even be surprised if we possibly gotten a Final Four in the SEC and whatnot. But I think that the SEC is so deep this year; it might be the deepest that it's ever been.
Yeah, it's tough. It's gonna be tough for the SEC, and especially moving forward. If expansion continues and stuff like that, it's going to be more tough. Adding Texas, Oklahoma, tough. It's tough already. And you kind of see how things in the SEC. You saw how Cal started out with Arkansas, basically transferring his team from Kentucky down to Arkansas, and Arkansas, didn't start off too good SEC play. Tough. Florida, a team that we thought, we're going to probably be decent, but look at them now. Probably more well-rounded teams in the country. And Todd Golden, we talked about months ago, being a little creeper down around Gainesville, kind of won to kind of keep those allegations away. And then looking at the state of Alabama, Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates, had a top 10 teams for the whole year. Now, Alabama kind of stumbled at the end. Auburn kind of kept things at pace. Granted, they didn't win the SEC men's tournament, but they kept things at pace. They kept doing what they're doing. Janai Broome, who may be National Player of the Year, maybe announced here soon. And, Alabama, scoring as they will, SEC has been great. But I just think there's other schools out there that maybe, should got the nod as well, in my humble opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm just now pulling up the bracket right now. I did see the whole thing. I'm looking at some of these matchups, and I kind of see some interesting matchups to start the entire tournament, like UConn, Oklahoma. I mean, UConn's not the UConn from the past two seasons. So Oklahoma definitely has a shot at that. You got Kansas, Arkansas. If Arkansas does win and St. John's obviously makes it out of the first round, but they have a tough Omaha team, it could be Calipari versus Pitino in the second round, which I think that's pretty darn good right there. Kentucky doesn't – okay, this is probably the biggest concern for me. Kentucky is probably – the biggest team ever, because we all saw what happened last year when they lost to Oakland. They played Troy, who has the oh god, I'm blanking on the conference player of the year.
Sun Belt. What's this kid's name?
It's not the Big South.
Let's see. I'm pulling. I think it's Sun Belt. Let me double check.
Yeah, Sun Belt. Thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
Sun Belt, Fun Belt. But yeah, Troy has the Player of the Year from the Sun Belt Conference on their team. So if anything, there could be it's not going to be a walk in the park for Kentucky. Most people will probably think, oh, Kentucky's going to win. No. After what happened last year, I don't know if we can trust Kentucky. Now, they obviously got rid of Calipari. He's at Arkansas. But you never know with this Kentucky team, especially with Troy. And then Georgia-Gonzaga. Okay, well, Gonzaga wound up winning the West Coast Conference Tournament. And obviously St. Mary's wound up winning the regular season title. But Gonzaga might be playing some of its best basketball. Can they do so against Georgia? And
very quietly.
And whoever wins that matchup is going to be facing Houston. That's going to be one tough matchup. So, and then that is pretty much it. Now, my big thing for Alabama is they made the Final Four last year. Do you think they have a possibility of making a repeat performance and making it back to the Final Four?
It all depends how they show up defensively and how they react to strong-minded defensive teams also. Because if y'all watch the game on Saturday against Florida, they got waxed. Four big guards, the multiple big men that can run down there. This abused Alabama in the second half. And to a point, they had like an 18-2 run. And to a point that Nate Oates said in the press conference, said, so a reporter asked him, why you didn't take a timeout when they go on that run? Nate said, well, what do you want me to do? Take a timeout and tell them to play harder than what I already told them? Well, no, Nate. We want you to take a timeout to kind of stop the bleeding there a little bit there, dog. But anyways, having said that, to make a run, for them to make a run to the Final Four once again, they got to be strong defensively. They can't let defensive-minded teams overmatch them. And also, depending on the health of Grant Nelson, if he's good to go, cool. If he's not, then the run that he really propelled that run to the Final Four, if we want to be real. If he's not good to go, then they might struggle a little bit, in my humble opinion. But if Grant Nelson's good to go, then cool. I think they got to find a chance. But he's not, it's going to maybe chop their legs off at least to the Sweet 16 or something like that. So, for me, for Alabama, they can get there. The offense can carry them there. But like I said, kind of looking on that bracket side of things, let me pull it up real quick. I mean, I know I got it down here in the queue right here, but let me pull it up right quick. Give me just a second. So if they get matched up, they can at least make Sweet 16. St. Mary's is the one I kind of worry about because they've been pretty strong all year. If you get past St. Mary's and get to the 6-16 spot, Wisconsin, BYU, tough matchups there. Tough defensive-minded teams that could get them trouble. So if those matchups happen there, if they get matchup against Wisconsin, BYU, for example, if it's a tough defensive struggle to a point, then you may have to lean either BYU or Wisconsin. If Alabama get up on the jump early on and stuff like that, then all good and gravy. But I think it all depends if Nate could be smart, will those guys to great lengths, and we'll see. There's a crapshoot in the tournament, so we'll see what happens. Oh, go ahead.
I'm still here.
Go ahead. I'm done.
Yeah. And other than that, are there any other matchups that stick out to you, whether it's from the SEC or whether it's anywhere in this tournament?
Well, I kind of want to do go down. I got like topics for each region, and I kind of do want to get your point on this one right here on the South region. So if we can, let's go ahead down and break down the regions real quick. Number one seeds real quick, ladies and gentlemen. Auburn, first overall seed, Duke, Houston, Florida. No bones about that. I think the only other two you probably consider it was Tennessee and St. John's. But I think since like St. John's kind of came in late into the fray of things, I think they got left out. And Florida, Houston, Duke were kind of more consistent, and Auburn more consistent teams all year. So, what is their number one seeds for them? Any argument against the number one seeds, Taryn?
No, I think this was kind of the expected one. I think Auburn was expected. Duke obviously was expected. Then you had Houston and Florida. Florida being from that super stacked SEC, and then Auburn kind of being the second banana, pretty much getting that. Houston obviously left no doubt in the Big 12, and then Duke didn't leave any doubt in the ACC, even though they did have that one loss to Clemson, but still pretty solid. I think Duke can definitely make some noise in that tournament. I just think that all these one seeds are going to be really good, and I feel this tournament might be as deep as it's ever been.
I think real quick for me, for the number one seeds, I think, Auburn, no surprise, more consistent teams all year. Duke, same level. Houston, early on, they took some early losses that kind of brought them down, but, they kind of found itself again. And Florida, like I mentioned about earlier, a team that, was going to be like an NCAA tournament team, but now you're talking about one of the better teams in the country and how well-balanced and I don't want to say stacked, but is well balanced all the way around, that I got them as a potential winner for the championship. I hate to say it like that, but you kind of look at some of the flaws of other teams. Right now, Duke, Cooper Flag with the ankle injury, how is he going to be? We'll dive more into that here in a second. Houston, scoring wise, would I be hearing this with them? Auburn, their older guys are great, but sometimes their emotions take them out of the game. And with Florida, it's just kind of like I won't say like a robot, but it's like they just consistent. And it's hard to park holes in that, in the set. So right now, if I'm doing like an early fill out bracket, just 3 minutes, stuff like that, Florida is coming out as my top pick right now.
Yeah, I think Florida and Auburn are my picks as well. That's a very good point on the Cooper Flag injury for Duke. I think it's going to be really, and you don't really get over an ankle injury that quickly. So yep. Duke, if I had to pick the one seed that's least likely to come out into the Final Four, I'd probably say Duke. And it's nothing against Duke, but I think that without Cooper Flag, or with Cooper Flag not at 100%, they're just not the same Duke team. And then Houston, look, I want to give Houston a chance, but Tennessee, I think, is going to be a tough matchup should those two make it to the Elite Eight. And Gonzaga, Georgia, whoever makes it out of that one, it's probably going to give Houston a run for its money too. Then you got Clemson, Purdue being last year's national runner-up on their side of the bracket as well for the Sweet 16. So I think Houston could have a lot more problems than most people expect. So I think Florida and Auburn are my most likelies to make it into the Final Four, but I think my least likely is Duke because of the Cooper Flag injury, and then I'm still not certain on Houston just because they have such a talented portion of the bracket that they have to try to navigate their way through.
And I'm glad you brought up Georgia. I thought that's like another team I keep on forgetting for the SEC. Like I didn't think Georgia was another team. Like
they just randomly popped up.
Yeah, when I saw them in the 9th seed, I said, you put they in the 9th seed? They in the 9th seed? And all that stuff. I was like, oh my god, y'all really trying to have that point home and stuff like that. But anyways, let's go through the South region real quick. Now after the South region, we'll take a little break after that. On the South region, like we mentioned before about Auburn, can they make it to the Final Four in your opinion?
I think so, but they've got their side of the bracket's pretty up there too. I mean, Creighton is also pretty decent, and then Louisville. I mean, Louisville's all right. I mean, if I had to pick, I'd probably say Creighton. Michigan's a little streaky, and I hate to sound like a West Coast bias guy, but I think UC San Diego definitely has a shot at beating Michigan, just because Michigan has kind of been that up and down team. And then Texas A&M, they obviously knocked off a number 1 ranked team this season, but they don't really have too much of a walk in the park against Yale. And then Ole Miss will draw the winner of the first 4 matchup between, I think, Texas Xavier. Or wait, is that right? No, that's San Diego State, North Carolina.
Yeah.
That's another interesting matchup right there in the first 4. Like that, man, that's such a tough draw for San Diego State. I didn't even know they were going to get in, and then they just managed to find their way into the tournament. I mean, their run in the MPSF tournament wasn't even that deep, but there they are, and they get a UNC team that is obviously hurt and still licking their wounds from that blunder they had against Duke. But I think that's probably the best first 4 matchup right there. And then I think that's pretty much it, other than Michigan State. Imagine if we get Michigan State, Michigan in the Elite 8. Families could be fed when it comes to that matchup. But yeah, I definitely think Auburn has a good shot. If they could just get past the Sweet 16, I think they definitely can do some damage. That's because Texas A&M is a legit team, and them beating a number 1 ranked team early in the season is no joke. But at the same time, they also have to get to the Sweet 16 when they get past Yale or Michigan or heck, even UC San Diego. Because remember, this is UC San Diego's first year of eligibility for postseason play, and the fact that they made the most of it is quite astounding. And I am rather impressed by them, and I think they have the nation's longest win streak. I think they've won like 14 in a row, which I think is pretty bonkers if you ask me. So not bad for a team that's in its first year of postseason eligibility after being brought up from Division II, mind you.
Yeah. First thing first, I don't know about you, but I hate that rule that a team's gonna come from Division II, Division I. They gotta wait like 4 or 5 years to make the postseason.
Yeah, they had to wait 4 years.
Yeah, I can't stand that. That's bullshit league in my opinion. But anyways,
I agree.
Look at this bracket. Auburn, they play in winner between Alabama State and I forgot who that state's playing, but Auburn will win that matchup.
Yes.
Now, when they announced this part right here, Louisville, Creighton, I said to myself, those 2 teams are not an 8 and 9 seed. I looked at that, and then they kept going down the bracket. Then they put Ole Miss 6 in the 6 seed. I said, we're talking about a Louisville team here that just made the ACC tournament final against Duke. Playing pretty tough, but Duke pulled away. Creighton was in the Big East final against St. John's. St. John's pulled away late, but you put them in a 9 seed? Meanwhile, we got Ole Miss as a 6 seed. We got Marquette as a 7 seed. You know, if you just look at I'll just say in the South, you can easily put Louisville and Creighton at one of those spots, in my humble opinion. And let me pull my other tag up real quick before we go back full screen. My question to you in this right here: did Creighton and Louisville get robbed in their seeding? Because if we look around the bracket, Kansas, a team I thought was on the tightrope as well, they get a 7 seed. Arkansas, they got a 10 seed. Now, granted, you don't want to be a 10 seed, but I feel like these 2 teams, Creighton and Louisville, deserve a better seeding than this. Your opinion on that real quick.
Yeah, I think most people seem to forget that the Big East is a legit conference. I think that is the Power 5 conference, the unofficial Power 5 conference, because remember, the 12 pretty much went gonzo, but I digress in that. But I think Creighton, I think, kind of got robbed a little in terms of its seeding. I mean, you don't make the Big East Conference Championship without beating some ringers in that conference, like UConn and whatnot. So I think Creighton should have been seeded a little higher. I mean, Marquette's also in the South region as well, and Marquette, they did as best of a job as they could against St. John's. But in my opinion, I think Marquette's perfect as is. Creighton, I just think, got robbed. Same can be said with, I mean, Louisville's kind of a debatable one. I mean, the ACC isn't too strong outside of Duke, in my opinion, but they did make it all the way to the conference championship, which I think was pretty darn good. So I think for Louisville, they probably could have been seated a little higher. I mean, now looking at it, I think Ole Miss being 6 is a little bit too high for them. I think Louisville Creighton would have probably been able to handily take that spot. I think they just want to avoid putting Ole Miss and Auburn in a second round matchup, which I think you could have maybe shuffled some things around. Maybe you could have put Marquette at the 6 and then Ole Miss at the 7 and whatnot. But I don't know. That's just how I look at it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. I mean, I'm looking at it now. I go out to the last bracket. UCLA, were they at 17? I don't know.
They play Utah State.
Yeah, but do you think they were a 7-seed team in your opinion? It's a tough sell to me on that part.
Yeah, UCLA, I think, has one of the better defenses in the nation, and that's kind of what gave them that edge in the Big Ten. Remember, this was their first year in the Big Ten, and they were one of the 2 of the 4 teams that managed to make the NCAA tournament. Well, from the Big Ten, they were 2 of the former Pac-12 teams in the Big Ten to make the NCAA tournament. So UCLA has an interesting matchup against Utah State. Now, UCLA is kind of in that up and down team. They obviously got thumped against Wisconsin in the Big Ten quarterfinals, but there was no doubt that UCLA was going to make the NCAA tournament just because they have so much. If you saw their body of work, they've got like a bunch of ranked wins. 1 came from Michigan State. 2 came against Oregon, which Oregon was in the top 15. And then you have 1 against Gonzaga. So there was no doubt that UCLA was going to get into the tournament. If the committee left them out, then that would be doing them an injustice, which I think would have been absolutely ridiculous. But for UCLA, it's tough to really gauge at this Utah State matchup. I think that's going to be a tricky matchup. If UCLA can play like they did against certain opponents, like the ranked wins that they had, and maybe even some of the close losses that they had, they could definitely win that matchup fairly easily. But if they play down to their competition, if their shot selection is poor, if Mick Cronin throws a hissy fit, then Utah State might actually pull this one off. But even if UCLA gets out of the first round, they're most likely going to draw Tennessee. And that's not going to be a fun matchup for the Bruins. But I'll give UCLA this. Last year was such a disaster for the Bruins. They lost to CSUN, which actually snapped the nation's longest home win streak and their longest home win streak in program history. And everything just went awry for the Bruins, which you compare it to this year, it was an obvious drastic improvement. Getting top 5, top 4 in the Big Ten is pretty impressive for it being your first year. But honestly, for UCLA, they've got a big uphill climb, and that's in part to some of their bad losses that they had early in the season, one of which was to New Mexico, which, they're in the tournament, so I guess that's not too bad of a loss, but they could have definitely avoided that one. They could have avoided a lot of other they could have avoided other bad losses, but I digress.
Before we go to a break, I want to ask you this, since you cover SoCal sports, and kind of ties on this question here. Did North Carolina deserve to get in And also, part 2 of the question:
Oof.
who wins
Man.
the matchup between the play-out matchup between San Diego State and North Carolina?
I mean, it's tough to really gauge at it. I mean, you look at North Carolina, they're obviously a blue blood, but I will just say, I don't know if they got in. I mean, again, you got to consider some of the teams that were left out in the first 4 out, like Boise State, Indiana, and West Virginia. I think, in my opinion, West Virginia probably could have flipped. You could probably flip Texas, Xavier, or North Carolina. But yeah, it's tough to really say. I think North Carolina could have been without being in the tournament. I mean, obviously they're not the same North Carolina, but I will say that's just such a brutal draw for San Diego State. And if San Diego State does make it out of the first 4 matchup, then they might actually have a chance against Ole Miss. But I'm not holding my breath on San Diego State advancing to the Sweet 16 for a second straight year. Like last year, they kind of, I wouldn't say they got lucky, but the last year they had a solid year, but they obviously drew UConn, and then the previous year was a year to remember for San Diego State. I just think that San Diego State is going to be in one uphill climb in terms of this North Carolina matchup. But if San Diego State beats North Carolina, then the committee definitely got it wrong, and North Carolina should not have been in it. So I think the nation is partially rooting for San Diego State to win, just because they're kind of that lovable underdog. They were kind of 2 years ago, but UConn had something to say. Curse you, Dan Hurley. But yeah, I think San Diego State, everyone has their back on, but North Carolina has a lot to prove, and that could probably be the tipping point for the Tar Heels.
To me, man, it's tough to say if they deserve to get in. Me personally, I ain't think they deserve to. They got in by the skin of their teeth, in my opinion.
Yep.
I think a lot of things broke their way, and make it to the semifinals in the ACC tournament against Duke, and almost winning that game. It kind of has an unlucky break going against them. Excuse me. Kind of like put them in the tournament, in my opinion. It's hard to say they deserve to get in. It's real tough to say. Everybody talk about the quad 1 stuff, all that blah 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 blah. Well, all that crap didn't matter when they got put in. So, a lot of people, what's that dude's name for ESPN that does the bracket all year round? I forgot his name, but he's saying last 4 in, last 4 out, the first 4 out, last 4 in from Tuesday.
John Rosenstein or something?
No, not Rothstein. He's a fat dude. I'm trying to pull him up. Joe Lunardi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that dude. Saying all this, the quad 1 wins, all that BS. Well, that crap didn't matter. And North Carolina's AD was on TV. I had to watch that, Bubba Cunningham. And what he said, that's what he said. And him and another dude right beside him, Keith Gill, said when discussion came up for their teams, they leave the room on all that stuff and discuss those teams. That's what they said. I was like, okay, whatever. But Bubba Cunningham, though, he's the head of this tournament committee. And that's, I think, where the conflict of interest kind of comes in. You the head of this committee, dog. And
Say again?
I say he's the head of this committee, dog. It's like, how not? We're gonna put you in. If we don't put your team in, are there gonna be consequences and repercussions for our team who's on the thread not getting in? That's legit questions that people need to ask. Was there a conflict of interest of Bubba Cunningham being AD for North Carolina and his team getting in. And the only reason, and his team got in, but only in as a play-in. Okay, we'll put them in, but they'll be in as a play-in team. Because they didn't put them nowhere else. They didn't put them in, I'm looking around that the 11th spot playing against Missouri. They didn't do that. They didn't put them, number 9 spot in where Baylor is there. So I think, to me, to round this up before we go to a break, I think it's a conflict of interest, in my humble opinion. They can spin it how they spin it on TV, whatnot, when the commentators ask them. But I just think, for me, I just think got too many cooks and ADs in the kitchen trying to push their own agendas. Even as an Alabama fan, Greg Byrne, he's up in that committee as well. Like too many conflict of interest there in these NCAA tournaments to try to make it fair and balanced for each school and who deserve to get in my humble opinion. But I'll let you have last word.
Yeah, it does seem a little weird that the North Carolina AD was featured. I think that's a little weird if you ask me. But again, as you said, it's complicated. I think it's complicated too, just because I didn't have Texas or Xavier in the last 4 in, and UNC has kind of been that little meh team this season. So all in all, I think this is going to be, like I said, this is going to be an interesting test for North Carolina. And if they don't beat San Diego State, then the committee 100% got it wrong, and there has to be some sort of like bias going on. There has to be some sort of like conspiracy theory going on. I know that sounds far-fetched, but I think there just has to be something weird going on. It's like you don't just have an athletic director on and North Carolina just sneaks their way in and then they get a first 4 match. It's weird. So
we'll see how things shake out for North Carolina and San Diego State. I think that'll be the one big matchup early on that I'm interested to see. San Diego State's defense, can they come out and kind of take advantage of North Carolina early on and, make Herbert Davis kind of coach from behind. If you can do that against North Carolina, if San Diego State can do that and make Herbert Davis coach from behind, I think it'll go a long way for San Diego State to win that game. But if you're San Diego State, you can't let, Carolina's athleticism get to you early. So that'd be a good matchup to watch there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take a quick break real quick. On the other side of things, we'll go down the East region, Midwest region, and break down those brackets there. But this is Fast Break here, live for IE Sports Radio. You're the read for always sports. We'll catch you on the other side.
The roar of the crowd, the drama and pageantry, the adrenaline rush and decadence of the world of professional wrestling. Join yours truly, the SoCal Saint, for the best pro wrestling podcast going today, the IE Wrestling Show, exclusively on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Join us every Wednesday from 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, every Wednesday, the IE Wrestling Show. It's just too woo!
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back here to Fast Break here live for IE Sports Radio, your Greek for sports. Thank you for tuning to us with us tonight. We're breaking down the NCAA bracket here. D-Lock's taking some personal time away right now. Hopefully he'll be back here soon. Well, joining us tonight, we got one Timer Enriquez with us here tonight. Host a set point here for IE Sports Radio. Also the SoCal Supreme Source Sports Show, right? Got it. I got it. So
Yes.
He's the host of those two shows here on the network. Also co-hosts the 3 and Out series with our founder, Larry B, as well. So do have to look out for those shows. And with the draft kicking in, NFL draft kicking in here soon, look out for those content coming out your airwaves. Before we on here, Mr. Rodriguez, I did bring up the East bracket. I think the main question for Duke and for this bracket, how much does Cooper Flag play in his first game? If you look at this bracket, pulling up right now, of course, they'll get the play-in winner there, whoever that may be. Let me ask you this question. Do you even bother playing him in that 1-16 matchup?
Probably not. I mean, you probably get him to like limited practice and then ramp him up as he starts to get better and better. And then eventually, once he's like at full strength, then you start to play him. I just don't think you use him for the round of 16 matchup or the round of 64 matchup against American Mount St. Mary's. So I think that it just would not be worth it. I mean, maybe play him for a little bit to try to get his sea legs back, but I think you just got to save him. And if you're up big against Mississippi State or Baylor, maybe rest him as well. Maybe limit his minutes, put him on like load management. I mean, obviously with him being injured, he's going to be on load management, but save him for the Sweet 16 if need be. And only save him unless it's like a true emergency. If you're like trailing and then the season's on the line and he's ready to go in, if he feels he's ready, then play him some sparing minutes.
For me, looking at this matchup, you know, if you get the winner between America and Mount St. Mary's, whoever wins that matchup, I mean, you have to send him that first game. I mean, unless one of the two teams get like the upper edge on you and they are kind of close all the way, then you probably have to play them. But, you know, the talented squad that John Shire, you know, got this past, last year with the recruiting class and whatnot, should be enough to handle either one of those schools that you don't need a Cooper Flag for that matchup. Because I think one thing, if you got championship aspirations, you don't want your top player to go out like that. You don't want to get hurt even further. And then you look in the second round matchup, Baylor, Mississippi State. Again, I mean, that's when the competition gets stepped up a little bit more. Mississippi State is a very strong defensive team. Baylor, kind of like a down year for Baylor, but a team that we've seen, you know, make runs in the tournament before. So do you kind of say that, you know, let them rest and come back in that game between either Mississippi State or Baylor? Tough sell. But you kind of the past couple games kind of showed that these other guys can show up and kind of carry the load with Cooper Flag gone. But I've John Shire. I'm not trying to rush him back in this first game. I'm not, and that's a game that's on a game on a Friday. So if you can push that injury, a little rest for another couple days after that, you should heavily do that. But like I said, it all depends on the player. And if he's good to go, then he's good to go. But if I'm Duke, John Shire, I will not try to rush Cooper Flag on him this upcoming Friday to play against 16 seed. Your thoughts?
Yeah, just keep Cooper Flag out as much as possible, and make sure until he reaches 100% or close to that. Don't play him in a game that can make the ankle injury worse. Rest him for the first round, see how he feels for the round of 32, and then if he's not quite 100%, then don't rush him back. Your team should be talented enough to take down Baylor or Mississippi State. And then once the Sweet 16 occurs, then you got to make the decision: is he fully healthy or close to fully healthy? Is he ready for whoever comes out of the Oregon, between Oregon, Liberty, Arizona, and Akron, which I imagine would probably be Oregon. Oregon, Arizona. If I look at that, if we get that second round matchup, that could be feeding some families as well, because that's a former Pac-12 matchup. But we're talking Duke here, and honestly, for Duke, you just got to keep Cooper Flag out as much as possible until he's ready to come back, until he's fully healthy. Just because the last thing you want is for your star player to make his injury worse and whatnot.
If you kind of look at this bracket as a whole, it's kind of like either this one in the Midwest, kind of like the weaker ones, because this got some of the teams you look on here. I mean, Wisconsin, tough team, but they're gonna have a tough struggle if they get the wrong matchup. St. Mary's is a team to kind of watch out on that can make a surprise Sweet 16 run. Alabama, we kind of discussed earlier. If Greg Nelson's not fully healthy, then their run maybe cut up short, because he was very key for them last year, in my opinion. And then, like you said, you mentioned about Arizona. They could get a good run going. Oregon, I think, don't sleep on Liberty in that matchup. I think Oregon should win that game. If the low post, presence would do well for them. But if Oregon gets past Liberty there, then you got a matchup against Arizona. And I take Arizona over that matchup over Oregon. And then that's, for Duke, how much Cooper Flag's health is really going to show. Because you got an Arizona team that's very tough. And then, say for instance, if Alabama makes it to the Elite Eight, that's a track meet right there. For the most part, that's a lot of moving, side to side, north and south. Can Cooper Flag and his ankle handle that? If they get matched up against Mississippi State in even the second round, that's a tough matchup right there defensively. How much they hard to play defense. So to go out the ankle injury, ankle injury is like kind of the worst time possible. If this is like mid-January, then okay, cool, whatever. Get back healthy, and then come tournament time, hey, singing a different tune. But you get hurt in the conference tournament, and then now you're kind of looking like this, like, ugh, it's gonna be tough for Duke. And you're talking about a Duke team that's been consistent all year, and it sucks that your star player will not make it possibly not make it through to at least the Final Four appearance to show his stuff. So if I look at this East bracket, I got Duke, Taryn, but just give me Duke out of this bracket, but just put a question mark on it. I could say Alabama, but put a question mark on them too. But Duke over Alabama, but put a question mark on it, in my opinion. I'll let you have last word.
You know what? I'm actually going to pick Wisconsin to make it out of the South bracket, or I'm sorry, the East bracket. I think the Wisconsin has its highest scoring team since the 70s, and Wisconsin is playing some darn good basketball. I know they just lost to Michigan. I know they struggled in that Michigan match offensively, but the fact they took down Michigan State is pretty impressive. And Wisconsin, I think, is a sneaky team to make it out of that Final Four, and I kind of have them make it out of the East region. So, all in all, for Wisconsin, they still have to be careful. Like Alabama, they scored, I think, 90-plus points 18 times this season, which that's so tough to contend with. So I think either Wisconsin or Alabama makes it out of the East Regional. Sorry. But yeah, the Wisconsin and Alabama is my pick to make it out of the East Regional. And then whichever team doesn't make it out of or whichever team loses first, the other team will probably make it. The only way Duke makes it out is if Cooper Flag is pretty much 100% and Duke pretty much leans on other players instead of just one player entirely to carry the load.
Yeah, like I said, Bama, Duke, probably the two top favorites. Wisconsin, like you mentioned, being the most high scoring team in their school's history in a long time. Another team to kind of keep an eye on. Also, don't sleep on folks. Don't sleep on Arizona, BYU, and Oregon. You know, even through those teams that can make a good run. Oregon, who started off the year pretty well, if it's going to be real. Started off pretty well. That's a big, good key wins against ranked teams when they're unranked early in the year, but they kind of slid a little bit. But don't sleep on Oregon kind of making a run and push towards at least the Sweet 16, at least. Beyond that, we'll see. But at least the Sweet 16, I think Oregon should make a run right there. Going to the Midwest real quick. Kind of looking in the Midwest regional and whatnot. Does Houston have an easy path to the Final Four? If you're just looking just at the bracket right now as it stands, if you kind of play it out, do they have an easy path to the Final Four?
I think this is probably the portion of the bracket that is so tough to predict. I mean, Houston is a good team, but again, that 8-9 matchup that they'll be drawing will be some kind of tricky. And if they make it to the Sweet 16, they'll more than likely draw Clemson or Purdue. Now, Purdue, last year's runner-up, I think that they're still a good team. They have the Big Ten Player of the Year on their team. But Clemson is also a pretty darn good team, which they beat Duke at full strength, which I thought was pretty impressive as well. And then you look on the other side, you got Tennessee, which I think Tennessee is probably going to make it to the Elite Eight, in my humble opinion. I mean, UCLA, defensively they're great, but can they struggle against the big time competition? I mean, they struggled against Wisconsin, for goodness sake. And Kentucky, I'm still not fully sold on. Illinois, if Illinois is at full strength or close to full strength, then they may have a chance. But most of the season, they have not been at full strength, and they've had some pretty meh losses, if you ask me. But we'll see what Illinois can do. I think Illinois could probably be in the Sweet 16, but I think Tennessee is probably going to derail all their hopes. And honestly, I think Houston's going to be in for a tough time. So I put Houston as a question mark to come out of the Midwest region just because you have so many talented teams. I think if it's going to be between them and Tennessee, in my humble opinion.
Just kind of look at the top part of the bracket where Houston's at. I think they'll beat the 16 team pretty easily. Now, when I say easy path, if Georgia upsets Gonzaga, then give me Houston all day over Georgia, in my opinion. But if Gonzaga wins against Georgia, then, you probably have to change your tune up there because Gonzaga has been playing some of the best ball for the past couple months, and nobody's been really talking about it. But if Houston get past one of those two teams, and then you got a McNeese team led by Will Wade that I'm not saying they could beat Clemson, but last year, they damn near beat Kansas and put a scare on them. And we're talking about Will Wade and McNeese that been playing damn good the past couple of years. So don't slip in that matchup between McNeese and Clemson there. And this is probably the last year of Will Wade probably there at McNeese State, to put that out there as well. And then you got High Point Purdue. The guy I went to high school with is like assistant coach on High Point, Antoine Young. Shout out to him. But I want to say Purdue might win that, but that's hard to say. Because Zach Edey gone and that size and presence is gone. That game might be close right there, but give me Purdue on the edge right there. And then, like you mentioned about Illinois, they have dudes injured or sick. There's somebody every time you look up, somebody's hurt and injured with them. But if they come together, they could be the team that make a good run. And Kentucky and Troy. Kentucky will win that game, but it won't surprise me if they lost. They in the same boat as Illinois. They have a lot of injuries to themselves as well. But if you're Mount Pope, you have to win that game to get confidence in that fan base. You can't lose that game. Like you can't. Because of the trauma of last year and the shortcomings that Cal has had the past few years at Kentucky while he's there. If you're Mark Pope, you can't lose against Troy. You can't. You can't. For that fan base, for yourself, you can't lose against Troy. And I'm not a big Kentucky fan either. But, dog, you can't lose that one. And then this matchup here, UCLA, Utah State. I'll say on the show, I'm not the biggest Mick Cronin guy. We're going to be real about that. I'll take UCLA to win, but it won't surprise me if they lost. Because sometimes I think Mick Cronin trying to makes himself too smart for his own good, if that makes sense. And I know you watching UCLA, you probably seen that in your own eyes, like, damn, dude, you just do some smart, dumb crap at times with your coaching. But give me UCLA slight edge over Utah State on that one. And Tennessee, that should handle Wofford. And then if Tennessee gets matched over UCLA, I think Tennessee will dog walk them. I think you will see a Tennessee in Elite 8 at least. And you see Houston there as well. And that right there, you want to talk about defensive matchups there and dog fights, Tennessee, Houston, that will be one to watch. A game that whoever gets to 71st, that win that game. But I'll take Houston there in that edge right there, and for Houston to make it back to the Final Four. Any remaining thoughts in this bracket?
I will say for this Texas Xavier matchup, it's going to be a very fun matchup. And I think whoever makes it out of that matchup is going to give Illinois a lot of fits. I think Texas, Illinois, of the teams that are in the first four matchup, has the best chance. That matchup has the best chance to upend its opponent. So I think if Illinois, they got to be really cautious when seeing Texas Xavier. They got to do their homework and study up what they need to study up on. So I think for That's going to be a fun matchup. And like I said, this is probably the most talented side of the bracket there is, just because most of these teams will probably make it out. I mean, UCLA, I know we kind of beat this horse already, but UCLA's defense is good, but you kind of mentioned it. I think Mick Cronin kind of gets in his own way and he overthinks things a lot. So Mick Cronin really has to outcoach every other coach in this bracket if he wants to have another run to the Final Four. But UCLA has to start off with Utah State, which is going to be a very tricky matchup. And then Tennessee, they have to work their way up from there. Like, I think between Tennessee and Houston, that's going to probably be the two teams that I think make it out of the Midwest region. But Houston, in my opinion, might have the edge, because if they play a Gonzaga-Georgia matchup, or when they play Clemson, don't count out McNeese, by the way. McNeese, I think, can definitely put a scare into Clemson. I think Clemson will win ultimately, but I think Clemson will just eke out the win. Purdue, you never can count out a wounded bear and whatnot. I think Houston has a good shot at making it out of the Midwest region if they can take advantage of the stiff competition that they're getting, because Tennessee would probably play UCLA or Utah State. Then they'd play Illinois, which hasn't been at full strength. Texas, they know what to see. Xavier's kind of an unknown. Kentucky, if we get Tennessee, Kentucky in the Sweet 16, that could be feeding families, and we can definitely be seeing a lot. We could be seeing some bad blood when it comes to that matchup. But I think this side of the bracket is probably the most talented, but it also can go either way with any of these teams that have a valid argument.
Yeah, I forgot about the playing matchup with Texas and Xavier. I was like, if you between Xavier and Texas get in, they do have a good shot against Illinois. This is how injured and sickly they have been. But it don't lose confidence between Texas and Xavier, though. Now, I still get the edge Illinois despite the injuries and illnesses within that roster. But like I said, I think Houston will come out this bracket. Just kind of, if you're doing your brackets, McNeese is kind of like that 12th seed that, if all the 12 seeds I'm looking at right now, if you look at all the 12 seeds right now, I think they had the best chance, in my opinion. And then, secondly, don't sleep on. We'll talk about more on the West End, but don't sleep on Colorado State against Memphis, especially if Memphis don't get their player back in time. UC San Diego, we'll talk about that matchup. UC San Diego might get Michigan. And then Liberty and Oregon. If Oregon come out and consistent and stuff like that, they can get Liberty, but don't sleep on Liberty as well. So all those 12 seeds are kind of like, you don't want to sleep on them, going to the tournament. Don't say Michigan. Don't say, go and say right now Memphis. Don't go. Kind of think about it if you're doing your bracket. If you're trying to do that perfect bracket, don't sleep on those 12 seed teams right there. But going to the West region real quick, Taryn, is Florida the most balanced team in the country? If you look at the number one seeds and whatnot, you kind of you see weaknesses at other schools. But with Florida, you really don't see weakness with them. Are they the most balanced team in this tournament?
Yeah, Florida, I kind of overlooked this side of the bracket. I mean, Florida on paper looks really good. But you got to remember, one team that I think poses a threat to them is St. John's. We always seem to overslight the Big East just because it's not a Power 4 conference or a power conference altogether. But St. John's is going to be such a tough matchup if Florida and St. John's make it to the Elite Eight. Just because Calipari is such a fantastic – Patino. Patino is a fantastic coach. And he's done wonders. Like he has, He's won six different conference tournament champions with 6 different teams, which I think is pretty darn impressive if you ask me. Or he's taken 6 different teams to the NCAA tournament and whatnot, but I digress. But yeah, this side of the bracket is kind of underrated. I mean, you obviously got Florida, but I think St. John's is up there. I mean, I don't think they're going to get an easy matchup in the second round because Kansas is a solid team, even though they've been all over the place. And then Arkansas with John Calipari, that's good. That would feed families if we saw Calipari and Patino in the second round. And then Texas Tech has been solid. Missouri, I would not say they're going to get an easy matchup. Drake has won 30 games this season, and that's going to be probably the most trickiest matchup right there for the Tigers. Don't count out Grand Canyon either, but Maryland is just really good. Maryland, I think, is going to be – I mean, they'll probably beat Grand Canyon by at least 10, but don't count out the Lobes. I mean, the WAC conference is nothing to ride home about, but Grand Canyon is solid. And then Memphis, Colorado State might be the best mid-major matchup because it's the battle of 2 mid-major conference champions, with Colorado State coming out of the MPSF and Memphis coming out of the AAC. And I think that's going to be a barn burner of a matchup. And also don't count out UConn because you never can count out the heart of a champion. And even though I don't really like Dan Hurley, I mean, he's still a good coach. But in order for UConn to get to Florida, they got to get past another SEC team in Oklahoma, which I think is going to be a very tricky matchup. But we'll see what happens with this side of the bracket. I think this side of the bracket is underrated, and I think between Florida and St. John's, those are the teams that I think will make it out of the West bracket. And I think Florida will probably edge their way past St. John's, because St. John's losses are not by a whole lot. I think their losses are by a combined 7 points altogether. I think they've got 4 losses, and they're all by 7 points combined.
I look at this bracket here, and one of the questions I posed to myself, and just look at this bracket: can UConn three-peat again? Can they win another championship, make it three-peat? It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for them, for Dan Hurley and company, to win and get a three-peat this go around. They got Oklahoma in the first round. I think they get past Oklahoma in that matchup. Oklahoma don't scare me. Like I said, it could be a tricky matchup, but I think Hurley and crew will get a little pushback from them, but I think they'll get past them. I think for Dan and company, if they're going to three-peat, Dan's got to be level-headed. And this year, it's like I won't say every chance, but it seems like, he goes viral for these moments and stuff like that with interaction with the refs and fans. And it's not been a good look for him in UConn. Like the Maui tournament, losing all those games did not help with his mindset. Going back and forth with the Creighton fans in Omaha does not help. The constant technicals, the berating the refs. If they're going to three-peat, man, he's got to be level-headed. And then if you get matched up before in that second round, you really got to be level-headed to beat them. Todd Golden's got that thing going in Florida. Kind of as balanced as a team as UConn has had past couple years. Tough, defensive-minded, big guards. You get up and down the floor, had good post play. So if UConn go three-peat, Dan Hurley got to be level-headed. If he's not level-headed, then they get bounced out by Florida after that first weekend. And I don't know if they can maybe get back to the level they were. They probably can, just because who he is and great recruiter he is and whatnot, what standard he set for UConn. But if you're trying to three-peat again, you gotta be level-headed all the way, in my humble opinion. But to pose a question to you, can UConn you three-peat in your eyes?
I just don't see UConn three-peating. I see them getting past the first round, but they're just not the same UConn team that they were the past couple seasons. I mean, they've got a great coach. I'll give them that much. But against a stacked Florida team, they'd be fortunate enough to even lose by single digits. But honestly, I think UConn can challenge Florida, but that's as far as they'll go. Just because UConn, you never want to doubt the heart of a champion, but I just think that UConn just doesn't have the dogs, no pun intended, that they had the past couple of years. And while Florida has just been mostly consistent for the most part, mostly. So I think, to answer the question, no, I do not think UConn can three-peat. If they somehow get past the first weekend of the tournament, then it gets interesting. But they've got a lot of stiff competition, including St. John's, who has had their number in the Big East. So, again, this is probably the second most stacked portion of the bracket behind the Midwest bracket. So the West bracket is going to be fun to watch, and I don't think UConn make three-peats.
Yeah, I don't see it either. And then you kind of look at the rest of this bracket. Kansas. That speaking of teams that are having like a down year in a sense, Kansas had a down year. They get matched up with Arkansas, and that's one of those matchups. Two big heavyweight coaches, Bill Self, John Calipari, and a lot of people kind of looking at that Calipari and Patino matchup. You can't slight Bill Self. Bill Self is a heavyweight himself. And it won't surprise me if Kansas wins this matchup, but it won't surprise me if they lose this matchup as well. And if Arkansas can play tough inside, and make those Kansas guards and wings miss enough shots, it'll go a long way for Arkansas. But if Kansas, those guards play a little bit stronger, as well as the team as a whole play a little tougher, because the team is kind of soft. If Hunter Dixon can play tough down low and whatnot against Arkansas, I think they go a long way for Kansas. Now, you get matched up against St. John in the second round, they don't get ran out. Let's be real. Because Patino and them are going to punk them out if they get matched up with Kansas. No bones about that. If you're Kansas fans, if y'all get matched up with St. John's, y'all get punked out. Y'all get punked out. Just beware of that. Anyways, St. John's, I would love to see if St. John's and Florida matchup just to see the styles and right there. But I don't know if St. John's may get clipped up early along the way. But, with Texas Tech, Mizzou, and Drake in that little area right there, they may beat their own selves up. Drake could upset Mizzou in that first round matchup. And you're talking about like a style clash right there between those two teams. And Texas Tech, riding the hot hand topping, they should get over UNC Wilmington. You're looking every time Grand Canyon will play tough against Maryland, but Maryland will come on top. Memphis, if they get Kelvin Banks back, all good. If they don't get Kelvin Banks back, I'm not saying they can win against Colorado State, but damn it, it's going to be real tough get past them. But if that 1-2 matchup turn happened in the Elite Eight between Florida and St. John's, I know you've been bringing it up about feeding families. That right there, you talking about the new generation coaching Todd and Golden and the old school and Rick Pitino. Those two style clashes right there. Oh, that'll be a treat to watch. Now, I know sometimes I had a tweet for the show, but for the show account, but that'll be a treat to watch this straight basketball psychology right there. Your remaining thoughts.
I also just realized that Arkansas versus Kansas is actually the Battle of Kansas because, Arkansas has Kansas in its name in it. So just a little bit of a funny fact right there. But I think this is going to be one of the more fun brackets out there. And I wouldn't be surprised if most of those teams can make it out. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was the portion of the bracket that has a lot of upsets. But it's a wait-and-see process, and again, lots of storylines. This might be the portion of the bracket that has the most storylines. I mean, can Rick Pitino take St. John's to the Final Four, the national championship? Can Florida live up to its expectations? Can John Calipari win with Arkansas after he was let go by Kentucky? Can Texas Tech rise to the occasion and become a dark horse? Can UConn at least make it out of the first weekend, let alone the first round, and keep their three-peat hopes alive? Can Memphis or Colorado State become a dark horse to win it all? Because if, let's say, Maryland does, and can Maryland continue to shoot the lights out when it comes to their gameplay? So I think this has, and can Kansas also prove that they are still a true blue blood? Like, so many storylines in this portion of the bracket, but just not enough time to go over it. But this one's going to be a fun bracket. Might be the most fun of the four brackets.
Yeah, I think this is the one that's going to be real interesting to watch, especially some of y'all who do your brackets looking for upsets. This bracket right here may be the one you be looking for upsets. All the other ones, you may get one or two, but this one here, like, you got some upsets up and down through this bracket that you can look on and say, this team might get them and whatnot, all that good stuff. But we're going to take our last break here. On the other side of things, the women's bracket finally got released. We'll dissect that real quickly here on the network, but this is Fast Break here, live for iSports Radio, your direct for sports, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Galise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate, diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold, and have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends. What's up with Pittsburgh sports? Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Galise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
And welcome back here to Fast Break here live for iSports Radio, your direct for all is sports. Now, as we began the show, the women's bracket was being done, all that good stuff. So I had time to find a picture for them, all that. But we'll go through the bracket real quick. As we come into this women's season, Terry, a lot of, I guess, build up from last year's, tournament. Caitlin Clark, can she win the NCAA championship? LSU with Angel Reese and whatnot, can they repeat? USC with Juju Watkins, the sensation freshman, can she carry the load for USC? UCLA, getting, what's that?
Oh, nothing. I'm just putting up the fours for UCLA and then putting up the peace sign for Fight On. I'm sorry,
okay. I'm sorry. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know what's going on there. But, UCLA, getting, some big time recruits, big time transfers with them. So you got a lot, the girl from Notre Dame, name escapes me right now. UConn, always UConn. So a lot of, weight from last year to carry on to this year. Now this year, you got more names out there. We already know about Juju, but, we got Sienna Betts out there. We got Paige Buchers out of UConn, who's finally healthy, good to go, and whatnot. When you look at this women's bracket and you look at the number one seeds, UCLA, USC, Texas, South Carolina, what do you make of the number one seeds, and especially you being a West Coast guy, UCLA, USC being number one seeds in their respective brackets?
Yeah, UCLA's been number one throughout most of the season. After they beat South Carolina, they rose to power, and then after that, after UCLA took its first loss to USC, then Notre Dame kind of swooped in, and then Texas swooped in, and then South Carolina beat Texas, and then UCLA beat USC when it came conference tournament time. So I think USC, the big thing for USC, Southern California, not South Carolina, I think for Southern California, that win over UConn was the big difference maker. If they don't beat UConn in the regular season, they don't get that number one seed. And they're probably the number one seed, and they probably have a tougher path to the Elite Eight, let alone to the Final Four. So I think for UCLA, it makes sense. And for South Carolina, it also makes sense. They've been consistent most of the season. Texas as well. You could have given the final one seed to UConn, but then you got that glaring loss to USC, which USC nearly lost that one. But again, USC winning that matchup against UConn, that was so big right there. So I think the Big Ten this year, for the Big Ten, it was as stacked as it could ever be. And I think that's why USC and UCLA got the nod. And the same can be said for the SEC with South Carolina and Texas. And the interesting thing is, if all those one seeds hold up, then we could be seeing a Big Ten versus SEC national championship. But it can only happen if all those one seeds remain intact.
Yeah, I think for me, let me go to the South real quick. Texas and South Carolina, them making the SEC tournament final, and then with South Carolina winning that game, one of the two consistent teams along in the country with UCLA, USC, and UConn. I think between those five teams and TCU coming on, as well, in which they kind of get their pub late. But those 4 teams right here we seeing, they kind of been more the consistent teams in the country. And some people will probably say, "What about Notre Dame?" Well, yeah, you can say them, but these other teams has kind of been here all year. You know what I'm saying? You know, they all been here, especially for UCLA, USC for me. And I think between these 2 teams, they I think we talked about a while ago. They better make, like I told you, they should make the Big Ten final. They better be in the Final Four. Because just looking at their brackets, I got it right in front of me. For USC, they got to get past USC and Greensboro, either California and Mississippi State. Then you look at the rest of the bracket, they got UConn there. That's the only I won't say speed bump. I'll say, you know, big old crater right there in front of them. Everybody else, if USC get matched up with them, they can wax them off the floor. Now, Kentucky may give them a game, but I think they should get past Kentucky. But UConn, that one game right there that they might have a struggle with right there. UCLA, looking at their bracket. Only crater bump in the road is LSU. I know NC State's number 2 seed, and Harvard got a nice girl on the squad that's been scoring the lights out this year. Don't got the name in front of me, but she's been playing real ball. So don't be surprised if Harvard upset Michigan State there. But UCLA, their only roadblock is LSU to the Final Four. Other than that, some people say, what about Grand Canyon? Nah, not really. And plus, that coach is probably choosing between Arizona State, from what I saw, and Arkansas for a new job. So she may be coaching her last game on this weekend. But those two, all right, look at those brackets. Only hiccups you got is LSU and UConn. Let me ask you this. If UCLA gets matched up with the LSU in the Elite Eight and USC gets matched up with UConn in the Elite Eight, who could get past? I mean, could both of them get past either matchup, or do one of them get tripped up there?
So looking at, I think UConn might have the trickier path just because Oklahoma is pretty darn good, if you ask me. I mean, they finished in the top 15 of their conference, or not the conference, of the nation. They had a great run into the SEC tournament where they made it to the semifinals. And Iowa, here's my thing. Iowa, I don't know if it was them having good home court advantage and a passionate fan base. Because remember, Iowa was one of the 3 teams that beat USC, and then I mean, UConn, I think, will have a tricky time no matter who they draw between Oklahoma and Iowa. Nothing against Murray State and Florida Gulf Coast, but the Sooners just look really good, and Iowa just looks pretty. I mean, they're solid, but they're at best a dark horse to make it to the Elite Eight. And then looking at USC, I mean, maybe Kentucky can make it out of make it to the Sweet 16, but I think USC has got a good path to the Elite Eight. My big concern is, will USC finally have everything figured out in terms of getting Juju Watkins a number 2 scorer? Will Kiki Irafin be able to step up if Juju is struggling? Will other players step up? Will Rhea Marshall step up? So I think that's something to definitely watch for in terms of USC. I think USC definitely has the best chance, and getting that 1 seed is just so clutch because their path to the Elite Eight isn't as daunting as UConn's, where they have to go through possibly go through an Oklahoma team or a Iowa team that might be a little streaky. Heck, even Oklahoma State can challenge them, but first and foremost, UConn has to get out of the first round to make it on through.
Yeah, I think Kentucky, like I said, they could possibly get to the Sweet 16, so I won't be surprised there. like I said, I do expect USC and South Carolina to make it. But like I said, they got 2 hiccups. LSU and UConn. If you want to throw in Kentucky, maybe. But that's the 2 hiccups right there for UCLA and USC to make it to the Final Four. And then you kind of flip over to the other page in a sense. You got South Carolina. And then in that bracket, you got them matched against Tennessee Tech, which that should be easy path. Utah, Indiana, Alabama, Green Bay, Maryland, North Florida State, West Virginia, either between the winner of Washington, Columbia, North Carolina, Oregon State, Vanderbilt, Oregon, Duke, Lehigh. I'm not saying it's an easy path for South Carolina, but damn it, that top half should be very easy for them. As an Alabama fan, I think they should beat Green Bay, but they'll get bounced by Maryland very easily, in my humble opinion. And just look at the bottom of the bracket. Don't sleep on Vanderbilt. You know, the Brooks, forgot the girl's name. Let's see. I'm trying to pull her up real quick. Give me just a second.
Are you talking about the TCU player?
No, for Vanderbilt. Michaela Blake.
Mind, sorry.
Yeah, Michaela Blakes. Don't sleep on her, ladies and gentlemen. Top scorer in the SEC, one of the top scorers in the SEC. They play Oregon. Don't sleep on her if she is on a scoring run. I'm not saying Vanderbilt's going to win a championship, not yet. But the way she's progressing, that's a team here in a couple of years. We're talking about at least a potential in a higher seed. So don't sleep on Vanderbilt. They're not winning a championship, but don't sleep on them. I don't think they get past Duke, but don't sleep on them, you know, in the future, making waves in that way. But Taryn, look at this bracket. In South Carolina, who else in your opinion?
Yeah, I think South Carolina can make it out of there. I mean, I don't see anyone challenging them too much. I mean, Dawn Staley does an amazing job with her program. Let's get that out of the way real quick. She is a fantastic coach, and remember, they're the reigning champions. And I know losing to UCLA as well as Texas hurt this year, but I think those were character losses. I think that was the South Carolina wake-up call that they needed, just because South Carolina, they didn't want to be as invincible as everyone thought that they would be. I think South Carolina needs a little bit of adversity and a little bit of a wake-up call to basically humble them and to make them say, you know what, there's going to be a lot of stiff competition this season. I mean, it's not just going to be South Carolina that's good. I mean, UCLA on their bracket, they look really good. And then Texas looks pretty good in their side of the bracket. I just think that TCU might give them a nice little challenge. But I think for South Carolina, they make it out of their bracket. The only team that I think maybe kind of gives them a challenge is Maryland. But Maryland, they're kind of that streaky team. I think Maryland, they're kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mrs. Hyde. I think if they get their high scoring like going, then they can be tough to beat. But I just think that Maryland, they would need to shoot the lights out in order to beat South Carolina.
I'm looking at Texas out of the bracket. That TCU Notre Dame Sweet 16 matchup is going to be a ball murder. Haley Von Slip, I think that's her name.
Haley Von Lith?
Lith, excuse me. Thank you. I knew it was Haley Von something, but Lith, but thank you. She, going to TCU, has done wonders for her career. So much so that I think it put her back in that, I'll say spectrum of the WNBA, first round pick, all that good stuff. And also a good thing that the league expanding that, you know, she could possibly be a star player somewhere. So, you know, her going to TCU is really kind of helped things in her career. But that matchup against Notre Dame in the potential Sweet 16, or Hidalgo in the other side of things, that's one going to be one to watch. I think Texas will get to the Elite Eight, but who they get matched up against in the Elite Eight is a bigger question, because it's going to come up down between either Notre Dame or TCU. I don't think Nebraska got no upset special in them. Michigan, no. So it's going to come down between TCU and Notre Dame. That's, if you fill out a women's bracket, that's going to be real hard when you get to that point to see who's going to go over in that game. You got Haley there, you got Hannah there on the other side. Which player is going to carry their team to the top to at least to face Texas in the Elite Eight? And then if either one of the teams beat Texas, I mean, they got a good shot of making it to the championship game. But I think Texas will be a little bit too strong for either one of those teams if they get matched up there. Your final word.
Yeah, I think for the Texas region, I think it can go either way with TCU and Notre Dame. I think both of those, that's a matchup that could feed families. But a team that I could maybe see challenging Texas would probably be Tennessee, maybe Ohio State, just because Ohio State has been good, but that loss to UCLA left a sour taste in my mouth. Like, how do you get thumped that badly against UCLA? Don't get me wrong, UCLA definitely deserved to win, but for being a 3 seed, I thought Ohio State was better than that. And then Tennessee, they know what to expect from Texas. I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee found a way, but I think Texas is just playing on a whole other level. So I think Texas will get challenged along the way, but I could see them making it out of their side of the bracket. But TCU is going to really challenge them. Notre Dame can really challenge them. So once it's Elite Eight time, Texas has really got to lock in.
Yeah, Texas really got to lock in. If you get matched up with either of the two teams, you can't, sleepwalk it. And I think, they should make it to the Final Four. Before we get out of here, on the women's side of things, who do you think comes out on top on the women's side of things?
Oh man, why'd you gotta ask me that? But man, it's so difficult. I mean, you know what? Look, UCLA, they look like the enticing option just because Lauren Betts is such a matchup nightmare down low. But if UCLA is not having the formula of success to use her in the correct way, then they are just not. Then they're setting themselves up for disaster. USC, as tempting as it is with them, and as me as a big USC stan or fan, I just think that it's going to be tough for USC because now Corey Close has the formula to beat USC. They know to throw double teams at her instead of just going one-on-one with her. And then for Texas, I mean, they've got a tough side of the bracket, but I think they'll be battle-tested. And then for South Carolina, I think they've got probably the easiest path to the Final Four. I mean, they did lose once to Texas. So, you know what? I'm going to go safe here. I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to say UCLA makes it out. I'm going to regret that probably, but I think UCLA comes out on top in terms of the national champion. But it's going to be tough. I mean, I expect Lindsey Gottlieb to make the adjustments following that UCLA loss because it is tough to beat a team 3 times in one season, but it also is tough when that team is making solid adjustments to lock down your best player, to hold her to only 6 points in 19 minutes and 47 seconds of the second half and whatnot. So I think that's going to be I think UCLA is my pick to make it out. Speaking of UCLA, they will play the winner of UC San Diego Southern U, which I know that's not an enticing matchup, but I gotta tip my hat to UC San Diego. They took down Hawaii in the Big West Conference semifinals, and Hawaii was the #1 overall seed. And bear in mind, Hawaii actually has a top 10 defense. I know UC San Diego almost lost a 27-point lead, but the fact that they managed to rally back to beat Hawaii was absolutely amazing. To beat Hawaii altogether was just amazing. And like I said, and then turning around to beat UC Davis, which is another solid team, that was also pretty good as well. So I needed to give my flowers to UC San Diego because just like on the men's side, it's their first year of eligibility for postseason play, and then they made the most of it in the Big West Conference tournament, and now they get a chance to showcase themselves by hopefully taking down Southern U. I mean, UC San Diego is that streaky team. As long as they have a solid, they get off to a good start and they never look back, they should be solid to taking on UCLA, which that's kind of a baptism by fire, if you ask me. But it's good to see UC San Diego in the tournament.
I think for me, for the women's, before we get out of here, I think each top team got a compelling case that you can argue for. But for me, USC, can Juju carry her squad all the way? And like we mentioned, we mentioned this on the show's page over the past couple months. Yeah, Juju can get you there, but damn, she needs some help along the way. And I think we kind of said that one too many times this year about that. And I think it might bite them on the backside. I'm just going to roll with UCLA with this. Betts got to have strong performances all throughout the tournament. And I'm not talking about at least like 15 and 13 stat line. I'm saying she got at least score at least 22 points a game through the tournament run. At least. If she can at least score at least above 20 points, and not at 20 points, above 20 points, I think it'll go a long way for UCLA. Dominate down low, get these teams in foul trouble, and whatnot. Make these teams play from behind that you play through her in the post that, she can take over and dominate these games. Like I said, USC is the second choice for me because Juju scoring and whatnot. But in the women's game today, that low post presence still carries a lot of weight. And I think UCLA got the best, possibly the best player in the country, but probably the best post player in the country in Miss Betts. But I think UCLA will win and come out of this bracket. And I think, it'll be good for a West Coast team to kind of come out and win. And also a team that is new to the conference as well to come out and show who's balls in the Big Ten as well. So I got UCLA coming out on top of the NCAA Women's Tournament. Your thoughts on that real quick?
I think that's a good pick. And honestly, if UCLA is not winning it this year, they're winning it next year because Lauren Betts is certainly not going anywhere. Lauren Betts said she'll be back for her senior year with UCLA. And I think that it's going to be a fun time for UCLA these next couple of seasons and whatnot. So I think UCLA, but they can only go as far as Lauren Betts takes them and as far as Corey Close game plans against certain opponents. But I'm certain she'll be able to lead the way, and I think it'll be time for everyone to put the whole Corey Close is not a good coach narrative to rest because she is a fantastic coach, and she deserves as much credit as the players do.
So we'll leave it in that. Darren Rodriguez, thank you for joining with me tonight to break down the brackets for the men and women's side of things. That's your tagline there. Darren Rodriguez point right there. If you can, sir, give a quick promotion of yourself real quick.
Yeah, you can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Darren Rodriguez1. You can follow Set Point on social media on X at set_point.ie and on Instagram at set_point.iesr. And you can follow the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on X as well at SoCal Show IESR.
All right, y'all heard the man. Give him all the follows. on all of his 3 social media platforms on X and / Twitter. Also, that point is also on Instagram as well. So do give him a follow on there for him on there as well. You see, check it down low. Follow IE Sports Radio on your social media feeds: Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're all there. Do follow me on Twitter right here. Well, follow D-Locke right there at Black-813, Black-8113. Do follow me on Twitter / access Bomb4288. That's Bomb4288. I don't know where my tag go, but do follow the show's page right there at Fast Break at IESR. That's Fast Break IESR. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here. Tournament week. A lot to talk about, a lot to discuss. We'll try and tweet out best we can out throughout the week, through all the games, all that good stuff. A lot of action to be going on. So do follow the network here. Not just this page, but everybody else's page, discussing their region. So all the basketball talk here the next couple weeks will be real deep and heavy in it, all that. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, we'll talk to y'all next week. All the tournament talk and who's gone. Until then, talk to y'all later. Peace.
Peace.